This is why you need to understand the Congo, a land of vast rainforests, mighty rivers, and abundant resources. For centuries, diverse tribes and kingdoms thrived in this heart of Africa. They built their own cultures, traded with their neighbors, and lived in relative harmony with their environment. The Congo Kingdom, one of the most powerful, had existed since the 14th century. It had sophisticated social structures and trading networks that reached across the continent. These kingdoms were not without conflict, but their disputes were often settled through diplomacy or traditional means. They had their own systems of governance, justice, and trade. However, this balance was about to be irrevocably disrupted by the arrival of outsiders. In the late 19th century, European powers scrambled to claim a piece of Africa. Driven by greed and a sense of superiority, they carved up the continent, disregarding the existing cultures and boundaries. Belgium, a small European nation with a king hungry for power and wealth, set its sights on the Congo. King Leopold II, the monarch of Belgium, presented himself as a benevolent ruler with a mission to civilize Africa. He disguised his true intentions, which were to exploit the Congo's resources for his personal gain. Using deceit and manipulation, he secured international recognition for his personal colony, the Congo Free State, in 1885. Leopold's rule was anything but benevolent. He ran the Congo Free State as a giant rubber plantation. He forced the Congolese people into slavery to harvest rubber, which was in high demand for tires and other industrial uses. His agents, driven by greed and ambition, imposed impossible quotas on the Congolese villages. Those who failed to meet the quotas faced horrific punishments. Hands were chopped off, villages were burned, and people were tortured and killed. Leopold's reign of terror was marked by unimaginable brutality and exploitation that decimated the Congolese population. The insatiable demand for rubber fueled Leopold's greed and the suffering of the Congolese people. Millions were killed or worked to death. Families were torn apart, villages were deserted, and a once thriving population was decimated. The Congo's natural resources, including ivory, were plundered to enrich Leopold and his cronies. The atrocities committed under Leopold's rule shocked the world. Reports of the horrors in the Congo Free State began to surface, exposing the hypocrisy of Leopold's civilizing mission. International outrage grew, forcing Leopold to relinquish his personal control over the Congo in 1908. Section 5: A People's Struggle for Freedom. Despite the change in administration, the Congolese people continued to endure oppression and exploitation under Belgian colonial rule. However, the seeds of resistance had been sown. The spirit of independence began to take root. Congolese leaders emerged, demanding self-determination and an end to colonial rule. The mid-20th century witnessed a surge in nationalist movements across Africa. The Congo was no exception. Inspired by the successes of other African nations in gaining independence, the Congolese people became more vocal in their demands for freedom. Section 6: The Price of Independence. In 1960, Belgium finally granted independence to the Congo. However, the transition was far from smooth. The colonial powers had done little to prepare the Congo for self-governance. They left behind a fragile state with weak institutions and simmering ethnic tensions. The newly independent Congo was immediately plunged into chaos and violence. Political instability, fueled by external interference and internal power struggles, created a breeding ground for conflict. The hopes and dreams of a brighter future were quickly overshadowed by the dark clouds of conflict. Section 7: A Nation Divided. The post-independence era saw the rise of different factions vying for control of the Congo. The Cold War further complicated the situation, with the United States and the Soviet Union supporting different sides in the conflict. The assassination of Patrice Lumumba, the country's first democratically elected prime minister, in 1961 further deepened the crisis. The Congo became a battleground for proxy wars, with neighboring countries drawn into the conflict. The eastern part of the country, rich in mineral resources, became a particularly volatile region, plagued by violence and instability. The conflict had a devastating impact on the Congolese people. Section 8. The Legacy of Conflict. The Congo's long and troubled history is a stark reminder of the human cost of colonialism, greed, and political instability. The conflict has resulted in millions of deaths, widespread displacement, and unimaginable suffering. The country's rich resources, instead of being a blessing, have become a curse, fueling violence and corruption. The international community has often failed to effectively address the root causes of the conflict. Peacekeeping efforts, while well-intentioned, have often fallen short of achieving lasting peace and stability. The legacy of colonialism and conflict continues to cast a long shadow over the Congo. Section 9. A glimmer of hope. Despite the ongoing challenges, there is hope for the Congo. The Congolese people are resilient. They have endured decades of hardship and are determined to build a better future for themselves. Civil society organizations are working tirelessly to promote peace, justice, and human rights. The international community must support the Congolese people in their quest for peace and stability. Sustainable solutions require addressing the root causes of the conflict, promoting good governance, and ensuring that the Congolese people benefit from their country's vast resources. For more insightful content and updates on global issues, subscribe to our channel. Stay informed, stay engaged,